You can feel the shift in someone's mood before they even speak. You know what people need before they ask. And somewhere along the way, you learn to become whatever keeps the peace. There's a particular kind of person who walks through this world feeling absolutely everything. Not just their own sorrows and joys, but the weight of everyone else's emotional weather. They're like human tuning forks, vibrating to every frequency within range. And if you're watching this right now, there's a good chance you're one of them. Society has trained these people rather well. Trained them to believe that their extraordinary gift of sensitivity comes with an unspoken price tag. The price of being everyone's emotional sanctuary, everyone's unpaid therapist, everyone's reliable rock. But here's what nobody tells you about that arrangement. It's slowly killing the most authentic parts of who you are. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist who revolutionized our understanding of the human psyche, didn't mince words about this. He called it a betrayal of the self. Not disappointing others, not setting boundaries, not finally putting yourself first. No, the real betrayal happens when you abandon your own nature to maintain a mask that everyone else finds comfortable. Think about that for a moment. The version of you that everyone loves, that everyone relies on, that everyone calls when they need something. What if that version isn't actually you at all? What if it's a carefully constructed performance that you've been giving for so long, you've forgotten you're acting? This isn't about being dramatic. This is about understanding something fundamental about human psychology. Jung spent his entire life studying what happens when we confuse our personas, the masks we wear in social situations, with our true self. And for sensitive souls, this confusion creates a prison that most people never even realize they're trapped inside. You see, your sensitivity didn't develop because you're meant to be the world's emotional janitor. It developed as a highly sophisticated survival mechanism. If you grew up in an environment where you had to read the room constantly, where you learned to anticipate someone's mood before they walked through the door, where your safety somehow depended on managing other people's emotions, then you became exquisitely attuned to everyone else. Not as a gift exactly, but as armor. The sensitive child who could sense danger in a parent's tone of voice, who could feel the shift in household energy before the storm hit. That child survived by developing an extraordinary capacity to feel everything. But here's the devastating trick. They became so skilled at reading others that they never learned to read themselves. And so we have these sensitive souls walking around 30, 40, 50 years old, still operating from that childhood survival program, still believing that their value lies entirely in their usefulness, still convinced that if they just give enough care, enough sacrifice enough, they'll finally earn the love they've been seeking all along. What a magnificent con job we've pulled on these people. We've convinced them that their sensitivity is a gift they must share with everyone all the time, regardless of the cost to themselves. We've told them that boundaries are selfish, that saying no is unkind, that taking care of themselves is somehow a betrayal of their nature. But watch what happens when one of these sensitive souls finally hits their limit. And they all do eventually. There comes a moment. Perhaps after years of giving until they're hollow. Perhaps after one more person casually takes advantage of their kindness. Perhaps on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon when they're sitting alone and realize they can't remember the last time anyone asked how they're really doing. In that moment, something cracks open. Not in a dramatic way necessarily. Sometimes it's just a quiet thought, a simple question that changes everything. What if I stopped? What if I stopped trying to fix everyone? What if I stopped absorbing everyone's pain like it's my responsibility? What if I stopped being available for every crisis? Real or manufactured? And in that question, there's a kind of terror. Because the sensitive soul has built their entire identity around being needed. They don't know who they are without someone to rescue, someone to comfort, someone to save. Their whole life has been organized around this role. The thought of stepping out of it feels like stepping into an abyss. But here's what we're going to discover together over the next 50 minutes. That abyss It's not an abyss at all. It's space. Open, vast, liberating space. Space to breathe. Space to think your own thoughts. Space to feel your own feelings without everyone else's emotions crowding in like uninvited guests. This journey we're about to take together, it's not about becoming cold or cruel or disconnected. It's about something far more revolutionary. It's about becoming awake, conscious, whole. It's about discovering who you actually are when you're not performing for anyone. Before we dive deeper into this transformation, if this is already resonating with something in your soul, please hit that like button and subscribe for more content that challenges you to become who you truly are. Your support helps this message reach other sensitive souls who desperately need to hear it. Now let me tell you what really happens when a sensitive soul stops pleasing everyone and starts seeing the truth. Let's talk about the mask you've been wearing. In Jungian psychology, we call this the persona. It's not a lie exactly. It's more like a social interface, a way of navigating the world without revealing everything inside you. Everyone has a persona. The professional face you wear at work, the diplomatic version of yourself at family gatherings, the friendly neighbor persona. These are necessary, even healthy, when they're conscious and flexible. But for sensitive souls, something different happens. The persona becomes permanent. It hardens into what you might call the eternal caretaker, or the one who always understands, or the person who never needs anything. And you start to believe this persona is who you actually are. The danger here, and this is what Jung warned about repeatedly throughout his work, is that when you identify completely with your persona, when you believe your mask is your identity, you lose contact with your soul. You lose access to the deeper, truer parts of yourself. You become a hollow performance of yourself. Think about how this develops. You were probably a deeply sensitive child. You could feel things other kids seemed immune to. You noticed when adults were pretending to be happy but weren't. You absorbed the emotional tension in rooms. You knew things without being told. And somewhere in that tender childhood, you learned a devastating lesson. You learned that your sensitivity, your ability to feel and perceive so much, could be weaponized for survival. If you could just anticipate what others needed, if you could just keep everyone happy, if you could just be whatever they wanted you to be, then maybe you'd be safe. Maybe you'd be loved. So you developed this persona, this mask of the perpetual pleaser. And it worked in a way. People liked you. People relied on you. People praised your empathy, your kindness, your selflessness. And you learned to derive your sense of worth from these external validations. But here's what was happening underneath that mask. Here's what Jung would call your shadow, everything you had to repress to maintain that pleasant persona. Your anger at being used. Your resentment at always giving and rarely receiving. Your unexpressed needs, your unspoken desires, your boundaries that were never set because setting boundaries might disappoint someone. All of these rejected parts of yourself didn't disappear. They went underground, into what Jung called the personal unconscious. And there in the darkness, they grew. They festered. They leaked out in ways you couldn't control. Passive aggression, chronic exhaustion, mysterious physical ailments, depression, anxiety, the feeling that you're living someone else's life. This is the shadow, and it's not evil. It's not your enemy. It's simply everything you had to reject about yourself to be accepted by others. For the people pleaser, the shadow contains all the parts of you that weren't nice, weren't agreeable, weren't convenient. Your capacity for healthy anger, your right to have needs, your ability to say no, your permission to disappoint people, your freedom to be authentically yourself, even when that self isn't what others want. Jung was clear about this. What you resist persists. What you don't acknowledge consciously will control you unconsciously. The more you deny your shadow, the more power it has over you. The anger you won't admit to becomes depression. The boundaries you won't set become resentment. The needs you won't voice become a constant gnawing emptiness. And here's something fascinating that happens with people pleasers. Because they've rejected their own power, their own authority, their own right to take up space, they end up projecting all of that onto other people. They see everyone else as more important, more deserving, more worthy of care and attention. This is how you end up in relationships where you give 90% and receive 10%. And you somehow feel grateful for the 10%. This is how you end up surrounded by people who only call when they need something, who disappear when you're struggling, who take your constant availability completely for granted. You're not attracting these people because you're unlucky. You're attracting them because on a deep, unconscious level, you're showing them exactly how to treat you. You're teaching them that your needs don't matter, that your time is infinitely available, that you exist to serve their emotional comfort. And the most painful part, most of them don't even realize they're using you, because you've become such a skilled performer of the caretaker role that they genuinely believe this is just who you are. They think you love giving endlessly. They think you don't have needs of your own. They think you're fine, but you're not fine. Your body knows it even if your mind hasn't admitted it yet. The headaches, the stomach issues, the exhaustion that sleep doesn't cure, the feeling like you're running on fumes, the mysterious pains that doctors can't quite explain. Your body is screaming at you to stop, but you keep pushing through because everyone needs you. This is the moment of awakening, when the patterns become visible, when you start to really see what's been happening. And it's not comfortable. It's not pretty. It's actually quite painful to realize how long you've been abandoning yourself. You start noticing things you couldn't see before. Who actually shows up for you versus who only appears when they need something. Who respects your time versus who assumes you're always available. Who gives back versus who only takes. Who sees you as a whole person versus who sees you as a resource to be extracted. This clarity can feel brutal, because suddenly you're seeing all the relationships in your life through a new lens. And many of them don't look so good under this honest examination. But this is where the real journey begins. This is where Carl Jung, empath, and personal development intersect in the most profound way. Because you can't heal what you can't see. You can't change patterns you're not aware of. And you can't become who you truly are while wearing a mask that everyone else has grown comfortable with. The awakening is recognizing that the version of you that everyone relies on, that everyone praises, that everyone finds so helpful and kind, that version is a performance. And the real you, the one with needs and boundaries and a right to exist without constantly proving your worth through service, that person has been waiting in the wings for a very long time. Jung called this process individuation. The journey of becoming who you truly are, separate from the expectations of others, separate from the roles you've played, separate from the persona you've worn. It's the most important journey a human being can take. And for sensitive souls, it often begins with the simple, terrifying question we started with. What if I stopped? Now we descend into the depths. This is where the real work happens. This is where transformation begins. And I won't lie to you, this part is difficult. Because to become whole, you first have to face everything you've been avoiding. Jung described individuation as a lifelong process of psychological development. It's the work of bringing unconscious aspects of yourself into consciousness. It's the journey from living through your persona to living from yourself, that deeper, truer essence of who you are. For sensitive souls who've spent their lives people-pleasing, individuation requires something specific. You have to separate your authentic self from the persona you've been performing. You have to distinguish between who you really are and who you've been pretending to be to keep everyone comfortable. Think of it like this. You're going on a hero's journey, but instead of traveling to distant lands, you're descending into the underworld, of your own psyche. And what will you find there? Everything you rejected, everything you repressed, everything you were told wasn't acceptable. You'll meet your shadow, that collection of traits and feelings and desires that you've banished because they didn't fit the image of the selfless caretaker. And the first thing you'll encounter, the first thing that demands to be acknowledged, is your anger. Oh, the anger. This is where it gets interesting. Because sensitive souls often have a tremendous amount of buried rage underneath all that compulsive niceness. Rage at being used. Rage at being taken for granted. Rage at all the times they said yes when every fiber of their being screamed no. Rage at the people who exploited their kindness. Rage at themselves for allowing it. This anger can be shocking, terrifying even. You've spent your whole life being understanding, being patient, being the calm one. You've suppressed your anger so thoroughly that you forgot it was there. But it was always there, festering under the surface, leaking out as resentment, bitterness, chronic stress, inexplicable irritability. And when this anger finally surfaces during the individuation process, many sensitive souls panic. They think they're becoming the kind of person they never wanted to be. They think they're turning hard and bitter and cruel. But this is a misunderstanding of what's actually happening. The anger isn't making you into someone new. It's revealing someone who was always there but never had permission to exist. That anger is actually healthy. It's the part of you that knows your worth, the part that refuses to be used, the part that says, no, enough, I matter too. Jung understood that repressed emotions don't just disappear. They go into the unconscious, where they grow more powerful, more distorted, more capable of causing harm. The rage you won't acknowledge becomes depression. It becomes anxiety. It becomes physical illness. Your body literally stores the stress of all that unexpressed anger. But when you finally allow yourself to feel it, when you bring it into consciousness, something alchemical happens. The anger stops controlling you from the shadows. Instead, it becomes information. It shows you exactly where your boundaries were violated. It gives you the energy to establish new ones. It burns away the false self and reveals the real one underneath. This is what Jung meant when he talked about the gold hidden in the shadow. The qualities we most reject often contain the very strengths we most need. Your anger, properly integrated, becomes healthy assertion. Your ability to say no, your willingness to protect yourself, your capacity to stand up for what matters to you. But you have to work with this anger skillfully, not exploding at everyone who ever wronged you, not becoming bitter and suspicious of all human connection, but using the anger as fuel for transformation, as the fire that melts down the false persona and reveals the authentic self underneath. This is the death of the false self. And it's not metaphorical. Something in you actually has to die for something new to be born. The version of you that kept everyone comfortable at your own expense has to die. The relationships that were built on your self-sacrifice have to be allowed to die if they can't evolve. This is what Jung called necessary suffering. Some people will leave your life when you stop performing. And this will hurt. It will feel like loss. Because in a way it is loss. But it's the loss of relationships that were never really relationships at all. They were arrangements. Contracts where you provided unlimited emotional resources in exchange for crumbs of connection. The people who truly love you, who see you as a whole person rather than a resource, they'll adjust. They'll respect your boundaries. They might even feel inspired to look at their own patterns, but others will resist. They'll push back. They'll try guilt, anger, manipulation, whatever it takes to get their emotional support system back online. And this is where you face your biggest test. Can you hold your ground, even when people you care about are upset with you? Can you disappoint others to stay true to yourself? Can you tolerate their discomfort without immediately trying to fix it? This is not easy. Your entire nervous system has been wired since childhood to believe that other people's comfort is more important than your own authenticity. You've learned that making waves is dangerous, that standing up for yourself is selfish, that your needs don't matter as much as everyone else's. Breaking this conditioning requires courage. Not the dramatic movie kind of courage, but the quiet, everyday courage of choosing yourself when every cell in your body has been programmed to choose others first. Watch what happens to your body during this transformation. For years, maybe decades, your body has been in a constant state of hypervigilance. Your nervous system has been processing not just your own emotions, but everyone else's too. You've had chronic tension headaches, digestive issues, exhaustion that sleep doesn't cure. Your body has been screaming at you to stop, but you kept pushing through because everyone needed you. But when you finally stop, when you finally start setting boundaries and protecting your energy, something remarkable happens. Your body begins to relax. The chronic tension starts to release. The mysterious aches and pains begin to fade. Sleep becomes deeper. Energy returns. It's as if your body finally exhales after holding its breath for years. And this makes perfect sense when you understand what was happening. Your body was never meant to process everyone else's emotional waste. You've been functioning like an emotional sewage treatment plant, and your body paid the price. But here's what's crucial to understand. When you go through this process, when you face your shadow and set boundaries and let some relationships die, you don't lose your sensitivity. This is what people fear. They think if they stop being so giving, so open, so endlessly compassionate, they'll become numb or disconnected or cold. But that's not what happens at all. What happens is your sensitivity becomes conscious rather than compulsive. Before awakening, you absorbed everything automatically, like a sponge dropped in water. You had no control over it. Someone was sad, you felt sad. Someone was anxious, you felt anxious. Someone was angry, you felt responsible for fixing it. But after awakening, something shifts. You can still sense all those emotions. Your radar is just as accurate, maybe even more so, because you're not drowning in your own unprocessed feelings anymore. But now there's a pause between sensing and absorbing. A moment of choice where you can ask yourself, is this mine or theirs? Do I want to take this on or let it pass through? You develop what might be called a selective membrane, permeable enough to remain connected and empathetic, but strong enough to remain yourself. This conscious sensitivity becomes your superpower. You can walk into a room and instantly read the energy, but you're no longer knocked over by it. You can listen to someone's problems with genuine compassion, but you don't leave the conversation carrying those problems as if they're yours. This is the integration of opposites that Jung talked about. You're learning to be both soft and strong, both compassionate and boundaried, both open and protected, both sensitive and sovereign. This isn't about choosing one or the other. It's about holding both truths simultaneously. In Jungian terms, this is the integration of the anima and animus, the feminine and masculine principles within your psyche. The receptive, feeling, nurturing qualities balanced with the assertive, protective, boundary-setting qualities. Most sensitive souls are overdeveloped in the receptive and underdeveloped in the assertive. Individuation brings these into balance. And then comes the most profound part of the journey. After you've faced your shadow, after you've allowed the false self to die, after you've integrated your opposites, you have to spend time alone with yourself. Really alone. Not lonely, but in genuine solitude. For the first time in your life, there's no one you're trying to please. No one whose emotions you're managing. No one you're performing for. Just you. And this can feel uncomfortable at first, because without all that external noise, You have to face your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own desires. You have to ask yourself questions you've been avoiding your entire life. What do I actually want? What do I actually think? Who am I when I'm not being useful to someone? What brings me joy when no one's watching? What moves me when there's no one to impress? These questions feel terrifying because you've spent so long defining yourself through others that you don't quite know who you are on your own. But this is where the real treasure lies. In that solitude, in that space where you're not performing, you begin to meet yourself, your true self, for the first time. You discover your own preferences that have nothing to do with what others want. Your own opinions that you've been too afraid to voice. Your own quirks that you've been hiding. You find out what makes you laugh when no one's watching. What fascinates you when there's no one to judge it? What lights you up when there's no one to please? And something wonderful happens. You discover that you're interesting, that you have depths you never had time to explore, that you're actually quite good company for yourself. The sensitive soul falls in love not with someone else this time, but with themselves. Not in a narcissistic way, in a gentle, appreciative way. Like meeting someone you've always wanted to know. You start to see yourself as worthy of the same care and attention you've always given others. You start treating yourself with the same compassion you've extended to everyone else. You start honoring your own needs with the same dedication you brought to everyone else's needs. This self-love is revolutionary. Because once you genuinely love yourself, you can no longer accept relationships that require you to abandon yourself. Once you know your own worth, you can no longer settle for breadcrumbs of affection. Once you've tasted the peace of being alone with yourself, you can no longer tolerate connections that create chaos. The sensitive soul who has awakened and returned to themselves becomes unshakable in a way they never were before. Not because they've hardened their heart or built walls around it, but because they've finally found their center. And from that center, they engage with the world in a completely different way. They give from overflow rather than depletion. They help from inspiration rather than obligation. They love from wholeness rather than neediness. They connect from authenticity rather than performance. This shift is so fundamental that it changes the quality of everything they do. Before, every act of kindness was tinged with anxiety. Will they appreciate this? Will this be enough? Will they still like me? Will they leave if I don't do this? Now kindness flows naturally without the undercurrent of fear. It's pure, it's clean, it's freely given without strings attached, without expectations, without the desperate need for validation. So you've awakened, you've faced your shadow, you've let the false self die, you've met your true self in the solitude. Now what? How do you actually live from this new understanding? How do you integrate all of this wisdom into your daily life? This is where Carl Jung empath and personal development becomes intensely practical. Because transformation isn't just about insight and awareness. It's about changing how you actually show up in the world moment by moment, relationship by relationship. Let's talk about boundaries. Real boundaries. Not the apologetic, over-explained kind that people-pleasers attempt, but clear, clean, self-respecting boundaries that don't require the other person's permission or approval. A boundary isn't a weapon. It's not about punishing anyone or proving a point. A boundary is simply you honoring your own limits, your own capacity, your own needs. It's you saying, "This is where I end and you begin. This is what works for me and what doesn't. This is what I'm available for and what I'm not." The awakened, sensitive soul learns to set boundaries without guilt. And here's how that works. You recognize that boundaries actually protect both people in a relationship. When you have no boundaries, you eventually burn out and become resentful. You start giving from depletion rather than overflow. Your giving becomes tainted with bitterness. But when you have healthy boundaries, when you only give what you genuinely have to give, your generosity remains pure. You give because you want to, not because you're afraid of what will happen if you don't. And the other person receives something authentic rather than a performance tinged with resentment. So how do you actually set a boundary? It's simpler than you think. You make a clear, brief statement without over-explaining or apologizing. I'm not available that day. That doesn't work for me. I need some time alone. No, I can't help with that. That's it. No 3-paragraph justification. No elaborate excuse. Just a simple, honest response. And here's what the people pleaser needs to understand. You don't need a good enough reason to say no. You don't need to prove that your reason is valid. Your reason is valid because you said it. Your no is complete because you spoke it. The guilt will come. Oh, it will come. Your nervous system has been wired for decades to believe that saying no equals danger, rejection, abandonment. So when you first start setting boundaries, your body will ring all the alarm bells. Your stomach will clench. Your heart will race. You might feel waves of anxiety or shame. This is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. This is your nervous system processing decades of conditioning. This is the old programming trying to pull you back into the familiar pattern. Feel the discomfort. Breathe through it. Name it. This is just my nervous system adjusting to a new way of being. I'm safe. I'm allowed to have boundaries. Over time, with practice and repetition, the guilt fades. The anxiety lessens. Your nervous system learns that you can say no and still be safe, still be loved, still be worthy. This is how you rewire trauma responses. Not by understanding them intellectually, but by creating new experiences that prove the old fears wrong. The discomfort you feel when you first start doing this, that's not a sign you're doing something wrong. That's just your nervous system adjusting to a new way of operating. You've been trained to believe that disappointing others is dangerous. Your body is processing the revolutionary idea that you can say no and still be safe, still be loved, still be worthy. Now you're still sensitive. You can still read the room. You still sense energy and emotion with extraordinary accuracy. But now you're not absorbing everything you sense. You're reading the room without taking on the room. Imagine you're walking through water. Before awakening, you were like a sponge absorbing everything you came into contact with. Now you're more like a dolphin moving through the water, sensing everything, navigating skillfully, but remaining distinct from the water itself. You can feel someone's sadness without becoming sad. You can sense someone's anxiety without becoming anxious. You can recognize someone's anger without feeling responsible for fixing it. There's sensation without fusion, awareness without absorption. This is conscious sensitivity, and it changes everything about how you help people. Before awakening, you helped by doing everything for people, by absorbing their pain, by trying to fix their problems. You helped from a place of compulsion and codependency. You needed to fix them so you could feel okay yourself. But now you help in a completely different way. You hold space. You believe in people's capacity to solve their own problems. You share what you've learned without trying to rescue anyone. You've become what Jung might call a conscious guide rather than a compulsive rescuer. And here's the paradox. This actually helps people far more than the old way ever did. Because when you rescue people constantly, you reinforce their helplessness. You rob them of the opportunity to develop their own strength. You keep them dependent on you. But when you believe in their capacity to figure things out, when you trust them to handle their own difficulties, you help them find their own power. You teach them to fish instead of catching fish for them. You empower them instead of enabling them. Your role transforms from savior to witness, from fixer to mirror, from emotional manager to supportive presence. And people who genuinely want to grow will respond to this beautifully. People who just wanted a convenient caretaker will find someone else. This is the great sorting that happens during individuation. Some relationships will end, and that's okay. Those relationships were built on your self-sacrifice. They can't survive your awakening because they were never meant to. They were arrangements, not authentic connections. Other relationships will evolve. The people who truly care about you, who see you as a whole person rather than a function, they'll adjust to your boundaries. They might even feel relieved, because healthy people don't actually want you to sacrifice yourself for them. They want genuine connection, not performance. And new relationships will emerge. As you become more authentically yourself, you'll naturally attract people who resonate with the real you. People who give as much as they take. People who respect boundaries instead of testing them. People who love the actual person you are, not the convenient persona you were performing. These new relationships feel different. They feel lighter even though they're deeper. There's less drama, less crisis, less exhausting emotional management. There's more ease, more reciprocity, more genuine joy. And you discover something astonishing that nobody told you before. Real connection is actually restful, not draining. Love that's genuine doesn't require you to abandon yourself. True friendship means both people take care of each other, not one person doing all the caretaking while the other person takes it all for granted. You start to notice the difference immediately. In healthy relationships, you can be yourself without performing. You can have a bad day without feeling like you need to hide it. You can ask for support without worrying that you're being a burden. You can say no without losing the connection. In healthy relationships, there's balance. Sometimes you lean on them, sometimes they lean on you. Sometimes you give more, sometimes they give more. And it all evens out over time without anyone keeping score. There's trust that both people are showing up authentically caring, genuinely contributing meaningfully. This is what you were missing all along. Not because healthy relationships weren't available, but because you weren't available for healthy relationships. You were too busy performing, too busy people-pleasing, too busy being whatever you thought you needed to be. The real you was hidden behind the mask, and the real you is who healthy people want to connect with. Let's talk about your energy, because one of the most practical aspects of this transformation is learning to manage your energy consciously. Before awakening, you scattered your energy everywhere. You were available to everyone at all times. You gave your attention, your care, your emotional labor to whoever asked for it. But energy is finite. Even for sensitive souls, even for natural givers, you only have so much to give before you need to replenish. And when you're constantly giving from an empty tank, your generosity becomes joyless. It becomes obligation. It becomes resentment. The awakened, sensitive soul learns to give from overflow, not depletion. They learn to fill their own cup first. And this isn't selfish. It's sustainable. Because you can't pour from an empty cup. You can't help others effectively when you're running on fumes. So you develop what might be called an energy inventory. You start tracking what depletes you versus what nourishes you. And you make conscious choices about where to direct your limited resources. You're not a floodlight anymore, illuminating everything and everyone while standing in your own shadow. You're a spotlight, focused, intentional, powerful. You shine your light where it truly matters, where it's genuinely needed, where it will actually make a difference. And yes, some people get left in the dark. The people who were only there for free illumination. They suddenly find themselves without their personal sun, and they don't like it. This is when you'll hear the accusations. You've changed. You're not the person I knew. What happened to you? And the beautiful thing is the awakened, sensitive soul no longer scrambles to reassure these people. They don't rush to prove they're still good, still kind, still the same reliable doormat. They simply smile and think, yes, I have changed. Finally. Your body transforms too. Remember all those mysterious ailments? The chronic headaches, the stomach issues, the exhaustion that sleep didn't cure, the mysterious pains doctors couldn't explain. Much of that begins to fade when you stop absorbing everyone else's stress. Your nervous system finally feels safe. It's not constantly scanning for threats, constantly monitoring everyone else's emotional state, constantly preparing to manage the next crisis. It can finally rest. And when your nervous system rests, your body heals. The tension you've been holding for years starts to release. Sleep becomes deeper and more restorative. Energy returns, not just physical energy, but creative energy, emotional energy, spiritual energy. You feel more alive than you have in years because you're finally living your own life instead of managing everyone else's. There's actual science behind this. When you're in constant stress mode, your body produces cortisol, adrenaline, all the stress hormones that are meant for short-term crisis response. But when you live in that state chronically, it wreaks havoc on your immune system, your digestive system, your cardiovascular system, your entire body. When you finally create boundaries and stop taking on everyone else's emotions, your stress response can finally downregulate. Your body shifts from survival mode to thriving mode. Inflammation decreases. Digestion improves. Sleep deepens. Pain lessens. You're not imagining these changes. They're real, measurable physiological shifts that happen when you stop betraying your own body's needs. Here are some daily practices that support this integration. In the morning, before you check your phone, before you start absorbing the world's energy, check in with yourself first. How do you feel? What do you need today? What are your intentions? This simple practice of putting yourself first, even for 5 minutes, rewires decades of conditioning. Create rituals around your boundaries. When you need to say no, take a breath first. Feel your feet on the ground. Remember that you're allowed to have limits. Then speak your boundary clearly and move on. Don't linger in the discomfort. Don't over-explain. Just state it and let it be. Do shadow work journaling. Have conversations with your anger, your needs, your truth. Ask your shadow what it needs to tell you. Write from the voice of the part of you that's been silenced. This brings unconscious material into consciousness, which is the essence of Jungian work. Find community with other awakened, sensitive souls. People who understand this journey because they're on it too. People who celebrate your boundaries instead of punishing them. People who see your transformation as inspiration rather than threat. This is how Carl Jung, empath and personal development, creates ripples beyond just your individual life. So here you are, transformed. Not finished, because individuation is a lifelong process, but fundamentally different from who you were when this journey began. You're no longer the person who saves everyone at the cost of yourself. You're no longer performing the role of the eternal caretaker, the one who never needs anything. The emotional sanctuary for everyone else's problems. You've become something new. Something Jung would recognize as someone who has achieved a degree of individuation. You've separated your authentic self from your persona. You've integrated your shadow. You've claimed your wholeness. Your new identity might be called the conscious empath, the sovereign healer, the integrated self. Whatever name you give it, this version of you has qualities that the old version didn't have. You have unshakable centeredness combined with deep sensitivity. You feel everything and lose nothing of yourself in the process. You love deeply without self-abandonment. You give generously without depletion. You connect authentically without performance. You're both soft and strong, both open and boundaried, both sensitive and sovereign. Think of a lighthouse. This is what you've become. A lighthouse stands on solid ground, on rock, on its own foundation. It doesn't chase after ships in distress. It doesn't abandon its post to rescue every vessel that's struggling. It simply stands there steady and grounded, shining its light consistently. And that steady light is enough. Ships that are ready to see it will see it. Those who need guidance will use it. But the lighthouse doesn't exhaust itself trying to save every ship. It trusts that its steady, authentic presence is its greatest contribution. This is sovereign sensitivity. This is conscious empathy. This is what you've become. And here's what's remarkable about this transformation. You haven't lost your gift. Your sensitivity is still there, as powerful as ever. Maybe even more powerful because it's not clouded by your own unprocessed emotions and unconscious patterns. But now, you have sovereignty over it. You choose where to direct it. You decide what to take on and what to let pass through. You can still walk into a room and sense the energy instantly, but you're not knocked over by it anymore. You can still feel other people's emotions with extraordinary accuracy, but you're not drowning in them. You can still offer profound compassion and support, but you're not sacrificing yourself to do it. This is the gift that was always meant to emerge from your sensitivity. Not endless self-sacrifice, but conscious connection. Not absorption, but genuine empathy. Not drowning in everyone else's emotions, but swimming skillfully through the emotional waters of life. And your transformation creates ripples. Because when you change, when you step into your authentic power, you give other people permission to do the same. By honoring yourself, you teach others to honor themselves. By setting boundaries, you show others that boundaries are possible. By choosing wholeness over performance, you demonstrate that another way of living exists. This is how individual transformation contributes to collective transformation. Jung believed in what he called the collective unconscious, the shared psychological inheritance of humanity. When you do your individuation work, when you become conscious and whole, you're not just healing yourself. You're contributing to the healing of the collective. Every sensitive soul who awakens and reclaims their power creates a new template, a new possibility, a new pathway for others to follow. Your courage gives others courage. Your transformation inspires their transformation. Your freedom helps them imagine their own freedom. Imagine a world where sensitive souls are honored rather than exploited, where empathy is respected rather than taken for granted, where giving comes from overflow rather than obligation, where people-pleasing is recognized as a trauma response rather than praised as a virtue. This is the world we're creating, one awakened, sensitive soul at a time. And you're part of this movement simply by choosing yourself, by honoring your limits, by becoming who you truly are. Now, I won't pretend this journey ends here. Individuation is lifelong. You'll have moments where you slip back into old patterns. You'll encounter new situations that challenge your boundaries. You'll meet people who try to pull you back into the role of caretaker. This is normal. This is part of being human. But you're different now in a fundamental way. You trust yourself. You know your worth. You honor your boundaries. You can sense when someone's trying to manipulate you back into the old patterns, and you have the strength to resist. You've developed what might be called a compass, an internal guidance system that keeps you oriented toward your own truth. When you feel that old anxiety rising, that compulsion to fix someone else's problem, that urge to sacrifice yourself to keep the peace, you can pause. You can check in with yourself. You can ask, is this authentic generosity or is this old programming? And most of the time now, you'll know the difference. You'll feel the difference in your body. Authentic generosity feels expansive, joyful, freely given. Old programming feels constricting, obligatory, driven by fear. The relationships in your life reflect this transformation. Some people left. That was painful but necessary. They were never going to love the real you because they never actually saw the real you. They saw a function, a resource, a convenience. Others stayed and evolved. These are the people who genuinely care about you. They adjusted to your boundaries. They respected your new way of being. They might have even thanked you for showing them a different way to relate. And new people came. People who resonate with your authentic frequency. People who give as much as they take. People who celebrate your boundaries instead of testing them. People who see your wholeness instead of just your usefulness. Your energy is different too. You're not exhausted all the time anymore. You're not running on fumes, pushing through with willpower and caffeine. You have genuine vitality because you're living in alignment with your true nature instead of against it. Your creativity has returned. Remember how you used to have dreams, interests, passions that got pushed aside because everyone else needed you? Those are coming back now. You have space for them. You have energy for them. You're finally living your own life instead of managing everyone else's. Even your purpose has shifted. You still want to help people. That's part of who you are. But now you help from a different place. You help because it genuinely moves you, not because you're afraid of what will happen if you don't. You help people who are truly ready to be helped, not people who just want to use you as an emotional crutch. You've become what Jung might call a wounded healer. Someone who has been through their own darkness, faced their own shadow, done their own integration work. And now you can guide others not by rescuing them, but by holding space for their own journey, by believing in their capacity to heal themselves, by being a living example that transformation is possible. This is the most powerful way to help. Not by doing the work for others, but by having done your own work so thoroughly that your very presence inspires them to do theirs. There's a profound shift that happens here. Before you helped people because you needed to be needed. There was something compulsive about it, something driven by your own unhealed wounds. You rescued others because somewhere deep down, you were trying to rescue the version of yourself that nobody rescued. But now, having done your own healing work, having learned to rescue yourself, you help from a completely different place. You help because it genuinely lights you up, not because you're terrified of being worthless if you don't. You help people who are genuinely ready to grow, not people who just want to use you as an emotional crutch while they avoid their own work. And you can tell the difference now. You can sense when someone actually wants to change versus when they just want someone to validate their victim story. You can feel when someone is ready to do the hard work versus when they just want you to make them feel better without having to change anything. And here's the liberating part. You're no longer compelled to help everyone. You give yourself permission to reserve your energy for those who truly value it, who truly reciprocate it, who are genuinely doing their own work alongside you. So what happens when a sensitive soul stops pleasing everyone and starts seeing the truth? They don't become less. They become more authentically themselves, more genuinely connected, more powerfully present, more radiantly alive. The true self that was always there, buried under all that people-pleasing, finally emerges. And it turns out that true self is magnificent. Not because it's perfect or enlightened or beyond all human struggle, but because it's real. Beautifully, messily, courageously real. And in a world full of masks and performances and people pretending to be who they think they should be, that realness is the most precious thing of all. If you felt this message resonating in your soul, if you recognize yourself in this journey, then know this, you're not alone. Sensitive souls all over the world are waking up to this truth. They're taking off the mask. They're setting boundaries. They're choosing themselves. They're becoming whole. You're part of a movement, a quiet revolution of people who are refusing to sacrifice themselves for everyone else's comfort, who are honoring their sensitivity instead of weaponizing it for others, who are becoming conscious, sovereign, integrated, Your transformation matters. Not just for you, but for everyone whose life you touch. Because when you live from your authentic self, when you honor your truth, when you shine your light from solid ground, you give everyone around you permission to do the same. This is how the world changes, not through grand gestures or dramatic pronouncements, but through individuals doing their inner work. Through people like you choosing consciousness over comfort. Through sensitive souls reclaiming their power one boundary at a time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this work. Thank you for having the courage to stop pleasing everyone and start honoring yourself. If this message moved you, I invite you to share your experience in the comments below. Tell me where you are in this journey. What resonates most? What challenges are you facing? What breakthroughs have you experienced? Your story might be exactly what another sensitive soul needs to hear today. And if you want more content like this, content that challenges you to become who you truly are, subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. Because we're building a community here. A community of awakened, sensitive souls who are choosing wholeness over performance, authenticity over approval, and sovereignty over sacrifice. The privilege of a lifetime, as Jung knew, is becoming who you truly are. You've taken that first step. You've questioned the old patterns. You've glimpsed the possibility of a different way. Now keep walking. Keep choosing yourself. Keep honoring your truth. Keep shining your light from solid ground. The world needs your authentic presence far more than it needs your endless sacrifice. The world needs sensitive souls who are conscious and sovereign and whole. Be that lighthouse. Stand on your rock, shine your light steadily, and watch how everything transforms.